You don't look like Catherine, though.
Madam Chairperson, my name is Jim Murphy, and I'm from the US EPA office in Boston. Catherine couldn't be here tonight, and I just wanted to take the time to update the Board of Selectmen on our activities at the Navy Yard Mill site. I'm just going to pull this off here. In addition to myself, we have a couple of representatives from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. Also, two representatives from the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, which is part of the U.S. Public Health Service that works with EPA on contaminated sites, Massachusetts, New England, and throughout the country. So the two of their representatives are here tonight also. What I wanted to do was just provide a little bit of a couple of slides on just kind of the site history. And I don't have a clicker, so I'm just going to have to run over.
You can use that handheld mic for when you're not. That mic does not fill the hall, but it allows the people at home to hear it, so.
Okay, I think I can probably
Speak louder, yeah.
fill the hall. So I don't know how familiar people are with the site. The Navy Yard Mill operated from the 1700s until the 1960s. There's currently 13 buildings out there constructed between 1860 and 1952. A former printed circuit board manufacturer, United Circuits, occupied a number of the buildings from 1980 to 2000 and considered to be the source of the contamination by industrial solvents out there, TCE and PCE. In October 2008, EPA initiated a site investigation to identify the source of the contamination contributing to vapor intrusion at several buildings at the site. And vapor intrusion simply is the vapors coming off kind of industrial solvents, volatile chemicals that have the ability to come up from the groundwater or the soil into the air, and can be of concern if they are come up into a building or an enclosed building where there's people living, working, playing. So from 2008 to the present, the sampling at the site included groundwater sampling, soil sampling, indoor air, and subslab vapor sampling. This is just a diagram of the buildings that are out there. I think people probably don't know them by these numbers that we have given them, but we have the Future Stars facility up on the top right, top center, as you can see. Next down in building B4, as we call it. There are vapor issues in a number of the buildings out there.
Which buildings? Are we going to get into which buildings have the vapor issues?
Pardon me?
You just said Future Stars up there. Is there an issue there, or?
Yes.
He goes through there.
Right.
Yeah.
So our sampling confirmed the presence of these high levels of TCE and PCE within a number of the buildings. EPA commenced our activities at the site in November 2011. We focused our activities on the contaminated soils in the basement of building number 1, which is the Lowell self-storage, and that was used in the past to store the drums of solvents, and was the location of a release of the chemicals around 1987. Our action out there consisted of removing contaminated soil. Actually, we first did an application of the chemical oxidants to try to treat the contaminated soil, and then that wasn't, we didn't find that successful, so then we went ahead and removed the soil following that. The concentrations of the TCE and the PCE that exceeded the state standards and prompting EPA to request a site health consultation from ATSDR. As I had said, that they're part of the U.S. Public Health Service, that, and they're experts in working with us on contaminated sites. We found several in the Nechstein building, number 4. We found several vapor intrusion pathways. That was just the way that the vapors can get into the building, through utilities, through piping, through cracks in the foundation, et cetera. EPA took action to seal a significant pathway with grout, but our sampling showed that the concentrations were reduced only by around 50%. Due to the presence of the pathways, we continued to collect indoor air samples through April of this year, and the results of that testing from January through April were provided to ATSDR for their evaluation. So ATSDR did determine that the levels of PCE and TCE in a number of the occupied buildings did represent a health concern, and recommended to us that steps be taken to reduce the the exposure for occupants in the building. So we're currently working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in relocation of the Future Stars business. They're not currently occupying the building, and our hope is that they'll be able to relocate immediately. I believe they have found a number of facilities that meet their needs, and we hope to see them in a new location very shortly. Temporary relocation of Nechstein to another building on the site will occur while the work is completed in their location. We're going to start our next round of activities out there in the next couple of weeks, and we anticipate it taking about 6 months once we get going out there. So we'll continue to work with the town. I know we've been working with the assistant town manager and ATSDR, Mass DEP, and Mass DPH to coordinate our outreach on the site status. We have not planned any type of public meeting at this point, but we're open to suggestions from the board as to what other steps might be useful either for you or for other members of the citizens in town to get a better idea of what's going on out there.
So it sounds like from just this brief summary, the businesses that are most affected they've all been notified, but the businesses that are most affected have found ways to find new locations or be relocated then?
Well, certainly, Nechstein, I believe the property owner is helping them move to another building temporarily. We, EPA, through the Army Corps, has helped Future Stars to relocate. Those are the only ones at this point.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Mr. Murphy, when did you notify the town about this problem with PCEs and TCEs?
I don't know the exact answer to that. I know that
A couple months ago or so?
Late July, early August.
Okay. When did you first know that there were these, this is contamination from the soil that's in the air, correct?
correct,
Okay. And this, is it TCEs?
as well as the groundwater.
Okay. Is that the stuff that's used in the dry cleaning process?
PCE is often used. It's used in that. It's a very common kind of cleaning solvent that was used by many industries. A degreaser.
Right. But when was it brought to the attention of the Future Star people that these children were in the presence of these serious contaminants?
Well, I think as soon as we got our report from ATSDR, and evaluated it.
What is ATSD?
ATSDR is the part of the U.S. Public Health Service I described. We have two representatives here tonight. It's the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, kind of a long name. But essentially, the way they work with EPA is when we have a site that we are concerned about, we provide the data to them, our sampling, and they will do a health evaluation, a consultation, let us know if they believe there's an issue out there and if we need to take any action to protect the public health in the facility or in the area.
Okay.
So we get the report from them, review it, share it with state officials, and at that point is when we don't like to contact people before we have, but we don't want to scare people. We want to be all on the same page that we think there's an issue out there, and then we try to take action as quickly as we can.
So from the time that the EPA found out that there was this problem,
Right.
how long did it take the ATSTR, or whatever it's called, to say to people who had kids there, or the owner, there's a problem?
I believe we informed the owner very quickly. I don't think there were kids in the facility once we were aware of that. Now, we do have some concern, just to let people know who've been there in the past. That's one of the things that we have discussed with Future Stars, with the business there, that we think it would be good to let people know that there was a potential issue there in the past. Exactly how long, I can't say, but just to let folks know that they weren't being exposed once we identified that, once we had the ATSDR study in hand. Prior to that, we just think it would be useful to let people know. Now, it's a difficult thing to do, and we've discussed that a little bit with the owner. How do we inform folks? Again, we don't want to scare people, and say because you were there was an issue. We really can't say that. We can say if you're in there now with the kind of levels of these chemicals, then it's certainly a concern.
It'd concern me if my child were there. It'd concern me very much. And when I first heard about this, frankly, I was horrified.
Right.
I didn't know about it.
So one of the things we considered, and we would still consider, is to have a session where folks from ATSDR who completed the health consultation would be available to talk to anyone who had been in had been a customer of Future Stars, have had their children go there. We have not planned that at this point, but again, we have discussed it, and we're open to doing something like that if if the board thinks that would be useful.
Well, it does, I'm just curious, because it does on this table that we were presented with, it sounds like the real risk is for kids who were there, it looks like either 6 or 8 hours, over 6 or 8 hours per week, which seems like a lot to me. I don't know if the kids were in there that long, but it does sound like that's kind of the marker for
Right.
issue.
Again, one of the things is I wasn't ready to talk about all the details of the report tonight. If you think it would be useful to either have another session, or again, what we typically do, what we call an availability session, where we would set up, tables where people could come and talk to the health folks, kind of one-on-one. Other people in the town could come in and ask questions more. It's a little bit more of a private forum. If you would prefer to have a more public review of the document, we could also talk about that. So, we'd kind of take some direction from the town.
No, I heard you say earlier, in a couple of weeks, they're actually gonna be in there starting to do the cleanup.
Pardon me, sir?
I think I heard you say in a couple of weeks you'll be in there starting to clean up?
Yes.
So
At least this next phase of it.
the owners of the building have been cooperative and everything?
We've been working with them. I'm not going to characterize, how that's worked, but we're working with them right now.
Madam Chair?
Sure.
I think that it would be advantageous to have a public review of the documents and advertise it enough so that if anybody has any concern, they can come to that public review. Certainly, the town could make this room available for such a review. and have it on cable so that everybody, I'm concerned enough about the health risks to anyone that might have been involved here, that there should certainly be a public review of that document. And that's my own personal feeling. I only had a question about the remedial efforts on behalf of you guys and what that entails, because that's an important part of our town in terms of that particular piece of property being viable again. Could you give us some kind of indication, without getting into great detail about it, but is it possible to become viable again so that it can at least be sustainable and be good for the town as far as taxes are concerned and be
Right.
productive for the town itself?
You know, there are a number of measures, kind of standard measures that can be taken to, you know, address vapor intrusion. I can't speak specifically to this because I'm not a technical person who wasn't able to be here tonight. But you know, there are hundreds of these kind of sites across the country that EPA is involved in, and you know, there are systems, you know, essentially improving the ventilation. And there are, you know, there's sub-slab systems. A building like this that's old and complicated, you know, many kind of connected buildings, it's much more difficult to address it. It's not one simple thing. It may be a series of measures that have to be put together. That's something I could get you a little bit more information on exactly what we're proposing out there.
Is that something that the owners of the building have to undertake, or is there help from the government in terms of helping them to remediate this problem? Because, I mean, certainly they weren't the people that caused the problem.
Right.
They have taken on a piece of property that they thought was viable, and now it may not be viable.
Right. You know, I don't want to get into all the legalities. I'm not one of our attorneys. The case, there is actually an active case where a litigation with the property owners and the government, so I really can't discuss it really any further tonight.
It does sound like they're gonna work towards making it viable if they can, for sure. So I'm wondering on a couple of levels, so you really need us, it sounds like you're coming here for, from us anyway, some direction about how we wanna proceed. And I'm almost wondering if it would be twofold, John, because I know if I was a parent, I would want some one-to-one discussion too as well as the public, so I'm wondering if it couldn't be sort of a joint process. I know as a parent, I would wanna have that one-to-one discussion, and I don't know that a public forum would necessarily allow for that, so maybe a combined, you know, process or combined forum, I think.
Right, I think something like that would be
would
be workable if that's what the board would recommend. You know, we have done them in the past, again, where we would, you know, kind of start out with the public presentation and then again have stations where people, you know, people could ask some questions in you know, in a group, and then essentially, you know, break up and talk to people one-on-one. So
That sounds very
I
good.
think that might afford both, you know, for people that just want a summary and then want to leave, but for you know, people that have questions to be able to do afterwards. Yeah.
right, so we could work with Glenn on pulling something together and giving a proposal and see what you think about as far as timing and how we would set it up and so on.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
What's your understanding of the business known as Nextine?
Of the business, what?
Known as Nextine? What did they do? What was that business?
I believe it's a catering business.
Correct. Okay. So people have been cooking. No cooking. Oh. Oh. No cooking on the premises. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Because, I mean, you know, I mean, to me, it sounds like, you know, lighter fluid. You know, you go into a dry cleaning facility and you realize why, like our late Senator Paul Songus, may rest in peace, his family was in the dry cleaning business. He died of cancer, as do a lot of people who were in that business in the 50s. And this stuff, it's probably not much safer nowadays. And you guys are in charge of regulating. I'm just surprised that, you know, we're hearing about this so late in the game. It sounds like a real serious problem.
Well, you know, our job is really trying to, you know, prevent future exposure, you know, we can't always do something about the past, so we're just trying to, you know, take care of the problem.
Well, I'm
with
trying to
it.
find out when you knew there was a problem.
Right.
And I haven't heard that information.
Yeah, well, I think that's, you know, we can go into more details about all of that, you know, what's in the report, just kind of the whole timeline, you know, when we got on scene, all the steps we took, et cetera. You know, again, where it's kind of walking that balance between having enough information and, you know, agreeing that there is a problem out there before, you know, before scaring people. You know, there's businesses there, we know, but we don't want people to be exposed. So it's something that we try to do very, very carefully. And we'll, you know, certainly let you know that.
Well, I would hope it would be that once you recognize there's a potential problem, I would hope the turnaround time to the recognition of the problem, so that people can be notified about the problem, is quick. Because if it's, you know, jet lag, 6 months, I mean, these kids are in there for extended periods of time. So they're little kids, they're trying to get better at baseball in the wintertime. You can't play outside in New England, generally speaking. That's why they're in there. So they're in there for a long time.
I do think it would be important to have that piece certainly at the public forum, so maybe the sooner, you know, I don't know what timeline. Are you gentlemen, everyone in favor of doing something in that, on that line, or? So why don't we just allow Glenn and yourself, or whoever in your company would schedule that, just let us know, probably sooner than later, I would think, sounds like.
Okay.
And just, and I would do sort of
The
a
kids are out
combined,
of
I
there
guess a
now.
combined, yeah, and at this
Pardon me?
point,
The kids are all out of there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it does sound like they're, you know, people are trying to work together to really solve this, so I think that's impressive. And again, I would just suggest some kind of a combined format so that the parents who do want some individual time have that opportunity.
Right, okay, that sounds good.
Madam Chair,
All right, yes,
Mr. Murphy, how is it that what the EPA actually got involved with that property? I mean, what brought you to come to the property?
I'm not exactly sure. I believe we were probably requested by the state. That's typically the way it happens. I don't know if there's anyone who can comment on that. Yeah, I mean, we typically don't you know, head out to removal sites or emergency response sites without, you know, the state being involved.
Now, you had mentioned a sub-slab. Is that a method of encapsulation?
Well, subslab is where, when we're talking about subslab sampling, it's really sampling below the slab of the building, you know. Not with sampling inside the building to see what's coming in there, then also sampling under the slab to see, you know, what the levels of contamination are, if they're the same contaminants that we're finding in the building. You know, it's kind of a lines of evidence approach.
And in your experience, in your opinion, is there a method to encapsulate that soil?
I wouldn't want to give an opinion on it. You know, it depends on the levels that are in there, and I'm not that familiar with the exact levels. Again, I'm not the technical person.
And the only reason I'm asking you is, you know, the gentleman that owns it, or men that own it, you know, are friends of some of us on the board, and
Sure.
you know, that they have their whole life invested in that, and
Right.
you know, it's a very much a concern of mine to try to protect their investment. As you know, I don't know if it was George or John said that you know, it's a big part of the town. It's become, you know, a success. You know, a really so much a success story that you know, to revitalize a building that was so decrepit for so many years,
Right.
and to have it go this way, it's really a shame. It really is. But I know that's not your fault.
Right.
I know you're just doing your job, but anyway.
well, I
Thank
think,
you.
you know, I think we certainly have some questions that can be answered at the public forum for sure. And, you know, I hope that things continue to move forward, because it does sound like that people, you know, people are working together to move forward, because we certainly want to see them do well there if they can, so,
Right.
we appreciate that.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very
for
much.
coming. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I know that we have one of the owners of the company.
Oh,
and
did, okay,
I
did they
didn't know
want
if they wanted
to,
to
did they want to say
comment,
anything? Sure, yeah, sure.
Just have a few words. My name is George Heiler. I'm an environmental attorney in Boston. I was asked by Tucard to come up because of the short notice, and the LSP, Keith Vereen, who's been working on the site for a number of years, couldn't attend. And it's unfortunate because, again, It was very informative. There's been, for the record, I believe Two-Card has been very cooperative through this whole process. And again, I appreciate EPA and DEP and state being here. This is a situation, again, where it wasn't caused by this owner. I'm glad that was put on the record. Also, it's a situation where you have a private entity that has spent over $600,000 trying to clean this up of their own money. So we welcome EPA involvement as well as DEP. Again, I'm used to dealing with DEP on these type of sites. This is a little unusual for me. I've been doing this for a number of years as a scientist and then as an attorney. And I do think that it would be, I would like EPA just to kind of explain that the standards that you're talking about over the last couple of months are new standards on, they're lower standards. So the original levels that were considered a concern are now lower through this process. And that's something I would appreciate basically informing the board that this is a moving target for this PCE and TCE. And again, that's one of the other issues. The standards have changed. In addition, there's a hope that that this becomes a non-issue. There's really, everybody's out of those areas, and a lot of the buildings are still operating, and, well, excuse me, they don't have a health concern. They can be used, but the ones that have health concerns that were identified by EPA, the Two-Card LLC has moved those people out, and I think there's 2 more people that are out on Friday. They're trying to get the computer systems moved out. And again, I think it's important, if there's a public meeting, I think it's important to have a risk assessor there who will identify some, which is their concerns, our concerns, whether this exposure is a concern versus what it was a few months ago, and how you calculate these 8 hours, 9 hours, 7 days a week, how old you have to, is it over 20 years, 10 years, 70 years of, so again, I don't profess to be an expert on that, and I was hoping that the LSP would show up because he just had a conflict, and again, this was short notice. So again, just for the record, but more importantly, I just would like to get some information on the, again, it's a health concern, but where the new data came from. There's, this wasn't, the original access agreement didn't have those levels. They were there, and now these are new levels that are lower, and we're trying to comply with those, and by doing that, everybody's out, and so therefore this concern is taken care of. Again, the past is something I agree with the selectmen to address it, but these are people that have worked hard. They're a private entity, and they've done all they can to address this, and at the same time keep a business going that is very difficult in these times. Thank
Can I
you.
ask the attorney a question?
Yes.
Let me just, it certainly is, just so he knows too, in the report, there's clearly areas that are not a danger, and those are clearly outlined in the report, so.
Again, I'll defer to
You
you.
are right, in terms of the fact that there are certain specific areas that are targeted, and it does sound like, I think we all acknowledge that everyone has been working, exceedingly hard to make these work. And so, any specifics like that in terms of the levels, I think would be, again, something to bring up in the public forum, but I don't know if you want to address that now. Do you have that kind of information, or?
Want to address any of that tonight?
Yeah.
Sir, before your client buys a piece of commercial property, you do soil tests, correct? Is it an 11E? Is that
A
what it-
21E,
21E.
a site assessment.
Correct, and I'm sure one was done here?
I believe there was, but I wasn't around at the time.
Do you want to come up,
Come on
and
up.
just come on up so we can all hear you.
Frank Pollock, he's one of the owners, and again, he's worked diligently to try and make this work.
Just for the record, I'd like the board to understand that my partner and I would never put any child or resident or employee in harm's way in that building. Ever since we first discovered that there was an environmental issue, probably 6 or 9 months after purchasing the property, the previous owner had done an environmental testing and had not disclosed the report to the state. Once we became aware of it, we were obligated to report it to the state. When we did so, DEP came in, started to work with us. They were helpful to us. We, at that point in time, began testing. We put 2 sub-slab systems in at our own expense at different parts of the building to mitigate, and that's why we are a better place today in these other areas of the building, because we have cleaned up these buildings on our own and provided the EP with this testing to document on a regular basis that there was no major concern, no imminent hazard. Until we had a meeting with EPA in August, we were not aware of this new level. When they came to our site, they requested a meeting, they came to our site, we met with them in the conference room. They made us aware of these findings, they had health representatives with them. At that point, at that meeting, I informed them directly that Future Stars would close. And we did so immediately. Talked to Mark DeShanes, they went up and spoke to the tenant, let him know right away that there could no longer be any youth activities in that building, he needed to close. We also started negotiations with Nextine to relocate, which are coming to a conclusion, we hope, by the end of this week or certainly by the beginning of the following. The issue was relocating all of his computer equipment and data equipment to put them in another location on the site that's a proven clean area. So we've worked diligently to try to get where we are. We thought by removing the hazard to health in those 3 areas, with the humans being in those 3 areas, that we would be allowed to proceed on our own to continue to mitigate the issue. However, EPA has decided to come in and take over the site with some multi-million-dollar appropriation, and from what I understand, they already have had the site declared as a major impact site, which I really can't understand, but it's government. So,
Sir, how long ago did you buy this?
just over about 5.5 years ago.
And did you say, correct me if I'm wrong, that you knew there was some sort of a problem 6 or 9 months after purchasing it?
Yes. But we began at that point in time. We notified DEP by law.
Okay.
We
all
had
right,
to go
I can
forward
appreciate
right
it.
away.
How about Mark DeShanes, though? Was he notified?
He was not a tenant at the time.
Okay.
And as soon as he became a tenant, yes, we had regular, we had postings. We posted the locations, so the tenants knew.
Really?
Even, oh yeah,
Did the parents of the kids know that?
every parent that went in there saw the
Okay.
postings.
All right, fair enough.
Because at that point in time, we were continuing with the testing and we remained in compliance.
Okay.
And until this meeting in August, when they changed the standards, we were not in compliance.
All right.
And I think that's all the kind of information that I hope we can maybe address in this public session, because I know, certainly, as we know, government, it goes through these processes, and oftentimes things change. And sometimes they're stricter than in the past, and sometimes they're more lax, but clearly this is a case where things have gotten stricter for whatever reasons, and so, that certainly is.
And it's not us to question it.
Right.
We were made aware of it, and we're trying to act on it.
Yeah. So I think, certainly people are not saying that you aren't working, because we know you are, and we appreciate that immensely. So, so I think these are all good points to bring back to the public issue, the public forum. I think these are all good questions. It does sound like everyone is working together, and I think that's impressive, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that. All right. Okay. All right, so the next